In 2018, the CDC did a multidisciplinary case study on what would happen if a 10 kiloton nuclear device went off at ground level in the middle of Washington, DC. What we've all just experienced is a simulation of a 1952 thermonuclear explosion in the Marshall Islands, Ivy Mike. On November the 1st, 1952, an almost 11 megaton device was exploded there in the Marshall Islands. And now, almost 70 years later, the effects of that are still being very much felt by the population of the Marshall Islands.
Military authorities have advised us that an enemy attack by air is imminent. This is a red alert. You are advised to go to your nearest shelter area immediately. Find shelter. There is not time to leave the city. Please remain calm.
Okay, these days we get a lot of questions about, well, what about higher yields? What about missile-delivered things? Well, let me give you a quick comparison. So in the middle I have the 10 kiloton. That's what I've been talking about, sort of our improvised nuclear device concept. On the right is 100 kiloton. Now, yeah, it's definitely bigger, but the range of effect is only about twice as far.
So an 800 kiloton Russian intercontinental ballistic missile is not 80 times worse than a 10 kiloton terrorist device, but it is significantly worse, and the zones of death, mayhem, and serious injury and minor injuries are actually bigger.
So these zones that I've been talking about, the severe damage zone, which goes out half a mile, the moderate, which goes from half a mile to a mile, it almost doubles the range of those effects.
I don't know why he did this, but 10 kiloton is half as bad as 100 kiloton. There's not that many 100 kiloton devices in use. It would have been more useful if you'd used 450, which is American ICBM, to about 800, which is Chinese, Russian ICBMs, to show the difference between them, but it's at least twice as bad.
What about an airburst? Well, we've got a couple of real-world examples with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Those were detonated between 1,500 and 2,000 feet. And you'll notice something when you look at these pictures. Yes, there's that mushroom cloud, but the white cap, which was created during the explosion and has all the radioactive material created from the fission process, doesn't quite connect with all the dirt and debris that was pulled up. There's an air gap there. And in fact, the small fission products that were created in the explosion actually stay up in the upper atmosphere.
It's long been known that what goes up eventually comes down, so the radiation will eventually come down. But the longer it stays up, the more it decays, and the less radioactive damage it can do when it actually finally falls. So that's a good thing. So air bursts are actually less radioactive than ground bursts in terms of the effects on the ground. But to discount the effects of radiation from an air burst is actually a mistake. It will still drop. It will still cause areas of high radiation that can injure and kill people who are exposed to that radiation on the ground for periods of time.
Which is why Hiroshima and Nagasaki had little or no fallout. So if a detonation occurs far enough off the ground that you don't get that mixing, you don't get a lot of local fallout.
I think he's speaking relatively here. Look up Google, Black Rain Hiroshima. That was an airburst. When he says not a lot, he's comparing that to the effects from a ground burst weapon. It doesn't mean there isn't any.
So we've got Duck and Cover 2.0. What does it mean for civil defense these days with all these various nuclear terrorism threats, nation-state threats? Well, if you have an imminent threat, if somebody's launching something at us, we'll know about it and generally have an opportunity to provide a warning. It may not be long, 10 minutes, 20 minutes.
So assuming there's no unannounced sabotage or EMP device exploded, the chances are your cell phone may alert you. What are you going to do over the next 10 minutes? 10 minutes is not very much of a long time. I was going to clip in a whole bunch of stuff from the fake alert that went out by accident in Hawaii.
Take immediate action measures. Repeat. The U.S. Pacific Command has detected a missile threat to Hawaii. A missile may impact on land or sea within minutes.
Showing various people in Hawaii running like crazy people trying to get undercover. They actually were doing the right thing, going as fast and as hard as they can to get solid concrete between them and the outside world. However, if you look back in the 1960s, things were much calmer in this type of scenario.
Here is a special and urgent message for you. This is Howard Viken, your official civil defense announcer. Civil defense authorities have determined that it is advisable for all persons to leave the city. Your safety and perhaps your life depends on remaining calm and following these instructions. Do not attempt to cross town. Leave the city immediately by the shortest route. Absent members of the family will rejoin the family after they leave the city. Federal authorities have indicated an enemy air attack is probable. We are not certain that it definitely will come here, but there is a chance that we will be attacked.
But the same place that you went to protect yourself from fallout is a great place to go to protect yourself from the prompt effects, from the blast. Getting into the center of a building, getting into a basement of a building can provide a lot of protection, just like hurricanes and tornadoes.
Know your local buildings well as you can. Know the local buildings that might be useful on your routes or your commuting routes as well as you can. Carry a solid and strong and in-depth stay-in-place backpack in times of nuclear alert.
Duck and Cover, Bert the Turtle from the Cold War, was really all about a no-notice attack. You see a bright flash, dive into the corner, cover your head. I don't think we need to go back there as a nation with that hypervigilance and waiting for the bomb.
In 2018, I would really agree with the guy. However, it's not 2018, is it? It's March 2022.
Ukraine is on fire. The country is being decimated before the eyes of the world. Further escalation of the war, whether by accident or design, threatens all of humanity. Raising the alert of Russian nuclear forces is a bone-chilling development. The prospect of nuclear conflict, once unthinkable, is now back within the realm of possibility. The security and safety of nuclear facilities must also be preserved. It's time to stop the horror unleashed on the people of Ukraine and get on the path of diplomacy and peace.
So I disagree with him. Get the basics of Duck and Cover 2.0 ingrained in your head, your family's head. Get it ingrained. This is no joke. Chances are we're not going to have nuclear Armageddon. Chances are things will resolve themselves in unexplained and strange ways, and everything will be much the same as it has been, except gas is going to be a bit dearer and people from Ukraine are going to be living in people's bedrooms all across Europe. We'll see how that goes. But the chances are that I might be wrong and nuclear war might kick off. So you really want to kind of have this stuff ready. If I see a sudden flash over there, I'm going to respond. I'm not going to go, oh, what's that?
If you are aware that there is a potential threat of an attack and you see a bright flash, it's probably not a bad idea to duck down, because what that helps with is avoiding potential blast effects and maybe even some of the thermal effects. And fallout. So fallout's the same regardless of whether it's a missile or detonate on the ground. If the detonation occurs close enough to the ground for that mixing of the fission products with the dirt and debris, you can generate fallout. The good news is it takes a while for that fallout to rise up and come back down, and there's a lot of places that you can go that can protect yourself from the penetrating gamma radiation from that fallout and really keep yourself safe, keep your family safe.
Yes, you're safe from the immediate effects. What happens if this was a nuclear war detonation, not an accident from one power plant or one terrorist bomb near you? What happens if this is multiple bombs going off all across the northern hemisphere and some parts of the southern hemisphere? The truth is also that a nuclear power plant explosion of a nuclear detonation type is highly unlikely, as is a terrorist attack. It's highly unlikely. The truth is, if you see a sudden flash in March 2022, I would assume it's nuclear war.
Get inside, stay tuned still works. I don't want to minimize it. This is definitely a catastrophic event. More than 750,000 people would be within those blast zones I talked about, 500,000 within that dangerous fallout zone. But there's a lot of resources in this area to help save lives, if we know what to do. If you go to a CDC website, you can see what it means to get inside, what it means to stay inside, and what it means to stay tuned. And guess what? As emergency managers, guess where you fall in? When that stay tuned pops up, they're looking for you to provide a message. And that message needs to be informed by situational awareness. Where's the best places to go? How do you avoid the fallout? What places are safe? What places aren't? Are you ready?
Are you? In the absence of government and civil defence existing in 2022 in any meaningful way, you are your own civil defence. You are your own self-preparedness person. What you know, what you do, might help you survive. Next time, it's the fourth and final video based on this lecture, and it's actually got a bunch of questions and answers that he did, which are really interesting, and it also has some resources, both in the links and also on the screen for you to look at. Take care. I hope I see you next time. I am trying not to focus too much on nuclear war right now. It's always been an interest of mine, but right now I have to get this stuff out because, frankly, I am seeing a lot of misinformation online, and if people try to prep that way or try to act that way, if horror happens and we have a nuclear war, they will be dying or killing their own families meaninglessly. Doodles.
Keep tuned to this station for further information and tell your neighbors to tune in also. This is your official civil defense broadcaster.
This has been Rubbing a Tiny Top Productions 2022.